Okay, so just to finish there, that particular question, it says, what trend or trends, if any, do you observe from your chart? Give a reason for your answer. Now, this is worth 5 marks. So, what trend do you notice? So, there's a few different things you could say. You could say that you noticed the total peaked for the amount of candidates who took the exam. That seemed to peak in 1998. You could talk about, over time, you can see that the female versus male scenario, that it started with more females doing the Leaving Cert, and then it kind of levels up, and in fact the males end up being slightly more in 2013. So, any kind of an observation like that, you could talk about the fact that, I suppose, in the past, guys were often sent to like what they would call the tech, to do trades, whereas I suppose now boys stay in school to study, all the academic stuff, not just the trades. You could talk about more females are doing the Leaving Cert now than they used to, because again, there was a time, I suppose, when girls were seen to, I suppose, just, go off, get married, have kids. And now we see a greater number of females actually staying until the Leaving Cert. You might talk about the little bit of a drop off after 1998. Why would that have been? So again, you might say, well, maybe there was a resurgence in terms of boys doing trades, that this again was seen as a worthwhile activity, and maybe things like LCA came in, and maybe that's why not everybody did sit the traditional Leaving Cert. So anything kind of to that effect, Explain why the number of males born in 1998 has no bearing on the number of male candidates who completed the Leaving Cert in the same year. Well, most of you answered this very well. Clearly, if you were born in 98, you weren't sitting the Leaving Cert in 98. So there's no correlation there. There's no connection there. Now, if you were talking about maybe the boys that were born, the boys that sat the Leaving Cert the year they were born, then that would be an interesting statistic to look at. But the number of males born and the number of males that sat the Leaving Cert has no bearing on each other. So that's why. And then calculate the mean and the standard deviation of the total number of candidates who completed the Leaving Cert over the period 1978 to 2013. So all you had to do there really was calculator work for the mean and the standard deviation. So I have that done here. Let me just check what it was again. Oh, where do I have it done? Sorry. Here. So you're just going into your stats on your calculator. Now, again, you can always message me if you want me to show you anything on the calculator, but I would like to think you do have all this written in your copybooks, how you get the mean, how you get the standard deviation. So the mean, question 7B part 1, yeah. So the mean was 53,078.625, and the standard deviation was 8,826.92. And that they were both just calculator pieces that you had to do. So 5 marks, straightforward stuff. So if those answers don't match your calculator work, please message me on Teams and I'll help you. And then what effect, if any, would excluding data from 1978 have on your results in part 1? Refer to each of the measures of central tendency and variability in your answer. So I suppose the translation of this is, if you left out the 1978 people, would it have any effect on the mean or the standard deviation? So we'll go back here. So if we were leaving out the 1978, so if we left out that first section of the graph, would it have any effect on the mean? So I suppose what we can say is it would. The mean would rise pretty significantly. In fact, if you do it out on the calculator, it rises from 53,000 and 78.625 up to 55,546.4285, etc. So the lower amount of people doing the Leaving Cert in that year means that it gets skewed. So by leaving it out, the mean rises. Now, what about the standard deviation? So the standard deviation actually drops. Now, why does it drop? Well, it was 8,826.92, but it drops to 6,350.18. Why does it drop? Well, because you're essentially leaving out the outlier. You're leaving out that one that's kind of affecting the spread of the data, because I suppose if you leave that one out, the rest are a bit more in line with the other years. So it does have an effect actually on the central tendency, which is the mean, and it has effect on how it varies, the variability, which is the standard deviation. So in other words, how far the scores are from average. Okay, and then the last one, it is the last one, isn't it? So this was our correlation coefficient type question, scatter graph question. So how did I do this one? So essentially, just to reiterate the method, you have Leaving Cert candidates, and then you have those who started college. So we want to see if there is a connection. So even if we just look at the first one here, remember, they're a pair that I graph. So I have to go to, first of all, I did 19,000, 21,000, 23,000, 25,000, 27,000. So I went up in 2000s, basically. Leaving Cert, I should have put there in thousands, and then started college also in thousands. I should have put that in there at the time. So I did 5,000, 7,000, 9,000. So just notice how my gaps are the same. These little notches here just show me that I'm not starting at 0. So that's just it's kind of like that you've edited it. You've cut out the start of the graph. So I want to graph around 19,000 against around just below 5,000. So that is why my first dot is there. Now, let's say I want to do the next one. That's around 24,000 and around 7,700. So I go to 24,000 and around 7,700. So each of these is considered like a coordinate, really. And what you do is you mark each one. So all of these dots eventually become this graph. Now, I'm only talking about the dots at the moment. Ignore the line for the moment, because that comes later on. So 5 marks for getting your graph to look like that, within reason. Sketch the line of best fit. Now, in class, I would have told you how you can find the line of best fit. So you're basically finding the middle of the x's, middle of the y's. So my point came out to be 2,000. So you can try this out in your calculator, 27,622.875. And the other one came out to be about 14,554. So that is why I have done that little X there, and I've done my line of best fit through it. Mine's a little bit off because you can't really use a ruler here on the screen, but that's the idea of it. So that's my line of best fit for 5 marks. Calculate the correlation coefficient. So that's the correlation coefficient. Again, you just do that on your calculator, 0.7470 for 5 marks. What can you conclude from the completed scatter plot and the correlation coefficient? So using both details, looking at this plot itself and looking at the answer here, I can say that it's strong because, they're not too far away from the line of best fit there. They do seem to be going up in a line. It's not perfect. It is quite strong because most of them are going up. We can see, especially if we zoom out, we can see that they are going up in a line. The 0.7 suggests strong correlation, and it's positive because it's going up. So a strong positive correlation for those who complete the Leaving Cert and go to college. So if you do your Leaving Cert, there's a good chance you're going to go to college. That's really what we're saying. Okay, and that was the last question in the test. So all done. So the next videos will be on the exam questions from the state exams over the last number of years.